The two men in this violent video that has angered most people who've seen it are now under arrest this morning. Gregory and Travis McMichael, a father and son, are seen here. State investigators who came in and took over the case days ago have charged them both with assault and murder of 25-year-old Ahmaud Arbery.
This is long overdue, and this is just one step toward justice, and with a long way to go.
Detectives are looking through every second of this cell phone video that shows the young black man jogging through a South Georgia neighborhood near his home in February when he runs into this white pickup truck.
There's a black male running down the street.
According to police, the two men now charged were waiting for him with their guns and said they believed he was the same person seen on security cameras breaking into homes. They had chased him here.
There's a guy in the house right now.
Was he just on the premises and not supposed to be?
He's been caught on the camera a bunch before at night.
Gregory McMichael, the father, used to work in county law enforcement, and that slowed the investigation. Two current prosecutors recused themselves from the case. One of them, in this letter, shared that he'd seen the video and did not see grounds for an arrest, saying that Arbery initiated the fight, and under Georgia law, McMichael was allowed to use deadly force to protect himself.
I think it was absurd that George Barnhill made the statement that Ahmaud was the aggressor. He was clearly defending himself and fighting for his life.
Arbery's friends and family are still grieving.
Ahmaud, most of all, was loved by his family and peers. I mean, Ahmaud didn't deserve to go the way that he went.
This week, after the murder of Mr. Arbery and the arrest of the two white supremacists responsible, many people and many activists have gone down to Brunswick, Georgia, to demonstrate and to articulate the fact that we need to have a prosecution in this case, we need to have a free and fair trial, and we need to have justice for this family. One of those people is joining us currently, senior pastor of Ebenezer Baptist Church and also candidate for the United States Senate, my pastor, Pastor Raphael G. Warnock. Pastor Warnock, how are you?
Good to be here with you, Robert. Thank you so much.
And you know, it's funny. People forget that I am still a member of Ebenezer. I've just been attending from Bedside Baptist for the last decade.
Well, you know, nowadays we're all attending from Bedside Baptist. I guess even the pastor of the church, since we are now forced to worship not on site, but online. So since we're all online, Robert, you should be a member in good standing, and I'll have to check your ties, see how you're doing.
Oh, yeah, about that. Let me go ahead and click that link real quick while we're on the radio. So tell people, yeah, you too, what have you learned in Brunswick, and what should we be doing?
We'll be dealing with this issue. I've been focused for years on the ways in which people have criminalized blackness in general and black masculinity in particular. And Ahmaud Arbery is just one of the casualties, one of the tragic victims of this problem in our country. We have to insist that we represent the New South. Every now and then, the worst and the ugliest of our past rises up and tries to take over the public space. And I think it's important for people of goodwill to stand up and remind us of what Dr. King said. We're tied in a single garment of destiny, caught up in an inescapable network of mutuality. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. That's why I'm in Brunswick. I never met Ahmaud, but in a real sense, he's my nephew. He's my son. He's my young brother. And so I met a little while ago with his father and with his father's two brothers. And as I stood there and talked with them, they reminded me of me and my brothers. We're all connected in this way, and somehow we have to transform this darkness into a moment from which we can rest the highest and the best in our souls.
And you know, with that, one of the questions that Reverend Jackson gets continuously asked, the same question Dr. King asked, why have we not seen the same level of outrage from other communities, from other churches, from other faith traditions, whenever there's a situation like this where a young African-American male is killed, and we hear silence often from the larger religious community?
Yeah, Dr. King often said that silence is betrayal, and silence speaks volumes. So I've been reaching out to other faith leaders, and we'll be saying something about that in the days ahead. But I think it's critically important that the church, that people of faith speak up in a time like this. And we need to hear a lot more, especially from faith communities across the racial lines at a time like this. Sometimes I think folks look, we're in this COVID-19 moment, so people are feeling overwhelmed. Honestly, today was the first day I ventured out in the way that I did, but I just found this issue so compelling that I needed to go and just stand and be here with this family. It was just us there at their family home, but it's so important just on a human level to connect. And so I'll be reaching out over the next few days to other faith leaders and people of conscience and talking about what is it that we can do to make sure that this kind of thing doesn't happen and you don't have another family suffer what this family's going through at this time.
I spoke with Bobby Rush, and what he impressed upon us was that they have been trying to pass anti-lynching legislation on the federal level for decades now. That in addition to the hate crimes laws which exist on the federal level, we have to have an anti-lynching bill. What's your position on anti-lynching legislation, and what else do we need to do legislatively to try to permanently end this practice of the lynching of black men in this country?
Well, if you think about it, over the last few years, we've seen these flashpoints, these terrible cases that speak to a kind of racialized terror that is visited upon black bodies and black people, whether it's a young man jogging, as he did, his dad told me he ran 5 miles a day, or worshipers in a Charleston church on a normal weeknight studying the scripture. I remember when the case happened in Charleston, there was debate about what, how do you charge this and how do you see it? And so we need to have a robust discussion about this. We've got to certainly broaden the view of what constitutes terrorism. When we think about what's going on in this country, I think we've got a bigger problem. We certainly have a huge problem with domestic terrorism. And there's a kind of way in which we've got to make sure that the public policy does not represent the kind of racial bias that doesn't allow you to see clearly what's happening, to name something for what it is. It's the case too often that you're not safe running while black, driving while black, sitting in the car while black, sitting in your own house while black. And I'm concerned, even as we watch the videotape, that we don't become numb to the killing of black bodies. And that was somebody's son, somebody's brother. And I was reluctant to watch the tape. I thought it was important to see. But I think we need to remember just the sanctity of the whole thing. You literally saw this man in the last few minutes of his life as it was stolen from him. And I think we need to pause, take note, and then our public policy needs to represent the depth of the tragedy.
Pastor Raphael G. Warnock, senior pastor of the Ebenezer Baptist Church, how can people follow you online? How can people keep up with you? How can people learn more about your campaign?
Well, I'm running for the United States Senate, and my website is www.warnock4georgia.com. It's completely spelled out, www.warnock4georgia.com. I've begun this campaign running for the United States Senate, but I'm really running for Brother Ahmad, who who lost his life running. I've been running for our children for a long time. I stood up in many instances in some of these terrible criminal justice cases where we've seen the ways in which we have not lived up to this American covenant of equal protection under the law. And when you take of a people, and when you take of black masculinity and make it in and of itself the enemy, that somehow black maleness is a menace, it is that premise that literally murdered this young brother in the streets. And so it's important for people of faith and people of goodwill across racial lines to stand up, condemn it, not just in our words, but to make sure that it is codified in our public policy. And that's certainly the case that I'll be making even as I run for the United States Senate.
All right. Can you give out that contact info and website info one more time?
Again, yes, please go to warnockforgeorgia.com. We've begun a campaign, but the campaign must be a movement for the best and the highest in the American spirit. And we got to stand up and fight for the soul of Georgia and for the soul of our country.
All right. Again, that's Pastor Raphael G. Warnock, senior pastor at Ebenezer Baptist Church, also Democratic candidate for United States Senate. Make sure you follow him online. Thanks so much, Pastor Warnock.
Thank you. I'll see you at church, Robert.
I'm going to get there. On my way right now. All right.